Now that we understand arrays, let's return to Visual Studio and bring in arrays into our application. Let's add an array, and we'll also see how we can work with the individual elements. We'll also see that we can use loops easily in combination with arrays. Let's create a very simple first array. I'm going to type first the type of array I want to create. So it's going to be an array of integer values. So we simply type int, but then we suffix that with a set of square brackets. Now this is an indication for C# that we're actually creating an array. Then we write the name of the array. So let's say that we want to create a sample array, and I'll put sample array 1. So this is the name of the reference, the name of the array really. Then on the right-hand side of the assignment operator, we can write the keyword new again. Since this is created on the heap, it actually requires the new keyword. Then we again type int, and between the square brackets this time, we need to specify the length. Say that we create an array that contains 5 elements, we simply write between these square brackets 5. And now we created an array which has 5 elements, and that's it. We cannot change it to have 6 or 7 or 8 elements afterwards. If that's what we want, we really need to create a new array and copy over the elements. So now we have created a very simple array of 5 elements. Another way of creating an array is doing the following. So let's create sample array 2. And let us now, in this case, do new int, followed by again the set of square brackets. But now I can also pass in the initial values, and this needs to go between curly braces, so a set of curly braces. Now I can, in a comma separated list, specify the initial values for the elements inside of my array. So if I do 1, 2, 3, and so on, I now have an array that contains these elements. Now notice that I this time haven't specified the length. If I would do the following, so let me copy this, and let us make this sample array 3. And if I do specify the length, say that I put 5 here, and I include a 6th element, I will get a red squiggly, as you can see here. The compiler has noticed now that I'm creating an array of 5 elements, but I'm trying to put in 6, and that is of course not allowed. So this won't compile. Now, although an array is fixed in terms of size once it's created, that size, that length, can be dynamic. I can do the following. Here I'm now asking the user how many IDs do you want to register, and I'm going to read that in a variable called length, and then I create my array at runtime with that length being passed in. So at runtime we are going to decide how many elements can go in there. Now once we have the elements inside of the array, we can actually access them, of course, otherwise it would be a rather useless element. Say that I want to, for example, get the value of the ID in the first position, that would be employee IDs, 0. Remember, C# is 0 based, so arrays are 0 based as well. That means that the first element has the index 0. It also means that I cannot do the following. If the length is the number of elements I want to put in, and the array is 0 based, I of course cannot access an element at position being the length, because say that that length is 5, we don't have an element at position 5, because it would be the 6th element. We don't get any compile time errors on that, but we will get a runtime error on that. Let's run the application and we'll see what happens. And I'm going to put a breakpoint before I do so. So here's our array. If you hover over the array, by the way, in debug mode, we can also see the different elements at the different positions. You indeed see that we have position 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 in an array of length 5. Now we're going to ask the user how many elements they want to register. Let's say 5. And now you see that I'm getting an exception here because I'm trying to access an index which is out of range. So I'm getting an error that says that we're trying to access an element that is outside of the bounds of the array. So let's put this line in comment because it's going to continue to give us errors. Now, of course, we still need to get values inside of the array. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a for loop here. That for loop is also going to be 0 based. As you can see, my counter, my iterator is 0. And I let the loop run until the length is reached, but not including. I write to the console to enter an employee ID, I read it from the command line, and then I put that value inside of my array by using again the index. Once we have the elements in there, we can also display all the elements again to the console. And I'm doing that here also by reading out the employee IDs, passing in my iterator. This is a nice example also again of looking at the scope of the variables. Notice that I have 2 times I declared here, but 2 times they fall within this for loop in terms of scope. All right, let's run this again. So my application is going to ask me how many items I want to register. I enter ID 1, ID 2, ID 3, 4, and 5. And then I display all my elements. And do notice that I have here ID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is because I used here I plus 1 as the displayed value.